Opportunity for me because I work a lot behind the scenes developing our devices, but it is really such an honor to be able to meet with all of you who are doing the groundwork of bringing it out to the world, right? So we only do part of it, but you guys help take it the rest of the way. And it's awesome to hear the feedback and the insights that you guys have as part of this co-creation process as we develop these products for you guys to be able to take to the world. So it's truly been an honor. Thank you for having me. And today I hope to be able to dive a little bit deeper into PRYSM. Yesterday we kept it a little more high level, right? Introducing the product, why it's so unique and special. But for those of you who are really interested in the science and the technology as to how it works, this is for you, but don't worry, for those of you who also are maybe a little intimidated by the technology, we'll keep it as well like simple so you understand. So starting off, let's talk a little bit about the inside of what the device does. So we talked high level about spectral ray and what it means, but today I want to give you an insight into a little bit more on the LEDs, why we pick them, how they work, and how the device operates from there. So again, 15 seconds, that's how long the scan is today. We reduced it from a 30-second scan on the biophotonic scanner into a 15-second scan. And we felt this was really important, again, to help make ease of sharing a little bit better. And just to have that, we thought a 15-second conversation would be a great way to start to introduce the products and to be able to talk about PRYSM.io a little bit more as people are learning about their wellness. So spectral ray, we mentioned this yesterday, but I want to dive a little bit more into the hardware side of the device. So again, we talked about hyperspectral absorption, so that is the actual hardware that's running inside. And what this means is inside of the device, we have, this is kind of like a high-level snapshot of what is going on inside of the device. We have two photodiodes inside of there, so this is all really, really tiny. Those photodiodes, what they do is they measure light. They measure the intensity of light. And then inside the device, we also have 5 LEDs. 3 of them are used to actually measure carotenoids. So carotenoids have a specific wavelength of light that they absorb at or reflect at. And this is known science, very highly studied, but we know that there are certain analytes in the skin that have reflective properties. So knowing what that is, we have 3 different LEDs that kind of capture the low end and the high end of how carotenoids absorb light. And then the other 2 LEDs inside of the device are actually meant to filter out other analytes in the skin, things like melanin and hemoglobin, that may interfere with the score, right? So we're doing kind of a math equation. We're doing hey, we know we're looking for wavelengths at this frequency, but we also don't want to capture any at these other frequencies. And so that is the science and the logic behind how we picked what goes on inside of the device. Now what happens, don't look very closely because the LEDs are bright, but if you see sometimes in videos, right, as you watch people scan, those LEDs flash back and forth in a certain order, and we do that. We actually do that 156 times every time you see that UI go around. We do that 156 times. So that's where we get our 700,000 measurements that it comes in. And we're doing this at extremely fast rates. We're just taking sample after sample after sample, going through and measuring inside the skin. And so how that works is, again, back to those photodiodes that measure light intensity. What happens is we measure how bright the light is on the way up into the skin, and then some of that light gets absorbed. It doesn't ever come back down. It stays in your skin. The rest of the light, we measure it as it comes back down and reflected off your skin. And that's what we do with our second photodiode. And then what we get back is a really, really, really small number. Again, if we're talking about the grand scheme of things that we could measure in terms of absorption and just what the photodiodes could read, we are picking up this super, super small signal. Which is, again, why it's so important, like we talked about yesterday, to treat this device as a high science, high precision piece of equipment. Because it is. We are measuring such small analytes in the skin and picking up those very small differences in order to calculate a score. So this is what's going on inside of the device as you see those lights flashing back and forth. But then, as we mentioned yesterday, that's not where this ends, right? We take those very, very small measurements and that's where we run it through the algorithm that was generated through AI and machine learning. And so those very, very tiny measurements get calculated into a score. And again, that score could be infinite, right? Because it's a math equation. And so the fact that we are able to measure such a small difference and be able to give a score on a scale is really huge and really impressive for this device, especially because it's so small and so simple to use. But again, there's a lot of best practices that need to be followed in order to make sure that those measurements and those scores are coming in correctly. With spectral array 2, this is patent pending, so you may say again, well, you're using LEDs, right? How is that unique to Nu Skin? But we have to remember that those LEDs and flashing those lights is only, I would say, maybe a third of how this device works. I would say 2/3 of it is really, again, in the science that we know on carotenoids and how they measure in people globally. So that math equation that we run those measurements through is unique and proprietary to Nu Skin and based on what we know from carotenoids and scanning over the last 20 years. So do not discount, the credibility and the science that Nu Skin has, right? We are industry leaders in this analyte, in this biomarker. Carotenoids, can you think of any other industry that has the kind of data that we do on carotenoids and the impact that it has on lifestyle? So again, this is truly what makes PRYSM.io unique, but I think it's important to remember this as you're scanning people, right? The high science that has gone into developing this product. But let's take like one step back, maybe 2 steps back, and just again, high level for people who ask, hey, how does this device work? You don't need to go into the details unless they really want to, but you can just say, hey, we use LED light, we use Nu Skin's expertise in measuring carotenoids over the last 20 years, and then we have an AI algorithm that's used to help calculate the score. So it's as simple as that, LEDs and an AI algorithm to be able to generate a carotenoid score. So I hope that helps, especially as people ask questions. But let's talk a little bit more, went a little fast, about some more studies that we've done. So when we initially kicked off this project, again, we had a prototype. It was in a styrofoam sheet. It wasn't pretty. But we said, hey, let's go and put this new technology to the test, and let's see if this actually compares to the biophotonic scanner. And so what we did was we had about 50 people take LifePak, and we had them scan on the biophotonic scanner and on the PRYSM prototype. And we had them take LifePak for 12 weeks, and we measured them at weeks 4, 8, and 12. And what we saw was that at each time point, I only have weeks 12 shown on here, but we saw that they had a very similar rate of score increase, right? So if you increased on S3, you increased on PRYSM. Were the scores exactly the same? No, and that's okay, because remember, we're using different types of technology. This is not Raman technology that we're using in PRYSM, but it was inferred by Raman technology. So a lot of questions you may get is like, oh, well, I scored 60,000 on the S3, but I'm only, 520 on PRYSM, right? That's okay, because what we used biophotonic scanner to create this technology in PRYSM, but they are not the same. We're using a different method to measure carotenoids, right? The same thing if you were to get 2 different types of pulse oximeters or glucose monitors out there, you may get a little bit of a different reading, but that does not discount the credibility of the science and the technology behind it. And so it's also important to remember too, we've shifted where we scan as well, right? We were scanning on the palm, now we're scanning on the finger, and so that may introduce some differences there. And this will only be this is part of that transitionary period, right, as we move away from S3 into PRYSM. But again, the point here that we want to emphasize, right, is that science and studies went in behind this to make sure that we were measuring carotenoids just like the biophotonic scanner. So you can see here in week 12, we saw a very, very similar increase in score between the 2 devices. And this was what ultimately gave us the proof that, hey, this technology works, let's go ahead and pursue it. Then fast forward from there, we actually went and said, okay, well, we want to correlate to the S3, but why not correlate to blood, right? Isn't blood the true golden standard of carotenoids, right? S3 has been great, but let's make sure that we actually can stand on blood and science as a device from there. And so this actually right here, for what we were talking about yesterday, this is the actual results from that study showing the plot of PRYSM scores against blood serum carotenoids. And so you can see here, if you see a perfect correlation is 1, right, following that slope, that's where we get our 0.77 correlation from there. And so again, this was such a huge excitement for our team as well to be able to say, hey, you know, we match the biophotonic scanner closely, but we also very closely correlate to blood. So that was a huge win. And again, just another kind of a confirmation again on the science and the technology that we put into this device. Just because it's a lot smaller, a lot more easy to use, a lot faster to scan, does not mean that the science and credibility of the score is any less. And this again is only the beginning. Yesterday we mentioned a variety of other clinicals that are coming. And I do want to emphasize again the excitement, even just externally outside of NewScan, how much people are wanting to get their hands on this device and be able to see what we are doing and how we're measuring it. So we're excited to partner with additional universities and continue to understand more what this device does. I think it's important to call out as well, we get a lot of questions about you know, scores changing, maybe there's a lot more variability in terms of what you're seeing. But we have to remember too, with the biophotonic scanner, we only had about 2,500 maybe max out in the world at a time. Very, very small. We are 6x that amount right now in terms of how many PRYSMs we have out in the world. And so even within an 8-week time span, we are scanning a lot more people, and we're scanning a lot more frequently as well. And so something my team and I are really excited about is to see, now that we are getting more data and insights at a more regular frequency, how those scores change, right? How different lifestyle factors impact your score at different rates, right? With biophotonic scanner, we weren't scanning as often, but now we are getting, I hear from all of you, right? I scan morning, I scan night, right? We weren't doing that on the biophotonic scanner, at least to this degree with this many people. And so being able to have this science to stand on from, hey, we are measuring carotenoids, to now starting to get real-time data from the field and how people are using it will be extremely, extremely pivotal for our team as we start to learn more and to be able to improve this device and provide more insights. So again, proven science you can trust. We want to make sure that you can always stand on that and that you don't have any doubts about what we are measuring and the validity behind what we are measuring. And then we have over 80 plus articles that are based on the technology that PRYSM.io uses. So this is something you can look up. There should be access, ask your account managers. We have a lot of great assets that talk about this technology, especially for people, right, that may have those more in-depth questions about, hey, you know, this device, how do we know that it actually works? There's a lot of research that our science team has put into this as part of the development process. And so again, this is what you need in order to feel confident about it. We've got the clinical studies, but let's talk a little bit more about those best practices to make sure that we are getting accurate scans and correct scans, because you can misuse the device, right? Like any piece of equipment, any health device, right? There are certain things that you should follow in order to make sure that you are getting the correct measurement. So from there, let's walk through a few kind of best practices, and I strongly encourage you to follow them, take notes. These steps are available. Follow our NewSkin Product Insider Instagram if you haven't already. We're posting a lot of tutorials and educational content on there that you can stay up to date with the latest. So the number one thing is make sure your finger is clean. We touch a lot of things. We eat food, we put on lotion, we shake people's hands, right? There's a lot that our fingers can keep on there. I always think my hands are clean, and then I scan on PRYSM and I see that fingerprint that's left, right? I mean, we carry a lot on our hands. So of course, make sure your hands are clean. You don't need to necessarily wash them, but if you need to wipe it off or do a little hand sanitizer right before, that's great, just to make sure you don't have anything on there. And then always make sure to clean the lens on the device before you scan and in between each scan. Again, because if someone has something on their finger, it might impact the scan of the next person that's in line. So it's really fast. Just grab that microfiber cloth, wipe it off really quickly, and you're good to go. I do encourage you to use the provided microfiber cloth. While the device is very robust and we've done a lot of tests on it, it can be scratched. Again, we are measuring very, very small analytes in there, so making sure you take care of that lens on the device is really important. Next, position matters. I know for a lot of social media videos, we like to hold it up, right, and hold it in our hands, which is great. I do it. It's fun to do. But if you're really looking to get a reliable measurement, an accurate measurement, making sure that it's flat on a table, and it's best when the user is seated as well, those that are scanning, just to make sure if you're standing sometimes, kind of moving around and talking, that can impact the score as well. So as long as you're holding still, making sure that the device is flat, because that will also help ensure that you have even pressure with your finger. So again, holding still, I know 15 seconds is a little long sometimes when you're waiting to scan and waiting for your score, but holding still will also help. But then again, variability is expected as well because we are measuring such a small analyte in the skin. We do see about a 10% variation, which we say is within normal range, right? And you can go and look up other health devices, wearables as well. This is about the 10 to 15% range is pretty typical for these types of measurements. And so that is expected. There's variation when you scan back to back, right? But then there's variation too when you scan day after day. And this is the part that we are learning, right? Your score may change day to day. And that's something that we are excited to kind of dig into and see why it does, what causes it to fluctuate that quickly. And so again, that's all part of this learning process that we are going through. The one thing too, I think is good to note for best practices as well, sometimes people like to really put the PRYSM to the test and they scan and they scan and they scan. But after scanning a long time, you're putting pressure on your finger, and that can change the way the PRYSM sees your finger as you're applying pressure and blanching that finger. And so if people want to scan back to back, that's great. The only thing we encourage is just, hey, scan, maybe give it a minute or two, then go and scan again and make sure that your finger has normalized. Same thing with blood pressure. You wouldn't go and take your blood pressure 5 times in a row. That would hurt, and that wouldn't feel good. So again, follow these best practices just to make sure that you're scanning correctly and getting that accurate score from there. I'm a little short on time, but I do want to sum up the 4 areas that impact your score. So this is something that we talk about in the app. 4 different segments. We talk about lifestyle, fitness, supplementation, and nutrition. So again, you may have people come and say, oh, I eat fruits and vegetables. Like, why is my score low, right? There are other things that impact your score, and I think that's what's great about this story is it's not just about diet. It's not just about supplementation. Those are really, really strong indicators of your score, right? But it's a little bit broader than that and bigger than that. And that's why it's important to have things like supplements that can stay constant in your life as life gets crazy and we can't control a lot of factors that go on. I hope okay, yeah, it shows up, okay. So we got a lot of questions about what my score means. And this is what we've put together in terms of what we've learned from the 20 million data points from our biophotonic scanner. We've been able to pull together different factors like lifestyle, supplements, sleeping, smoking, things that can impact your score. And we've broken it out. This is based on global numbers. So 20% of people are in that lower range, and that is a typical indicator of not eating a lot of fruits and veggies. Typically people smoke, or maybe are out in the sun a lot, or have high BMI, not exercising frequently. Whereas on the flip side, the people that score higher are eating eating fruits and vegetables, taking their supplements, exercising. This is really fascinating to see how the globe breaks out into those different segments. But what I did is I wanted to go and pull Europe on PRYSM.io and see how people are scanning. So this is PRYSM.io data from, I think you guys got access to this device in December, I think, so this would have been since December. I think I pulled it 2 days ago. There are 44,000 scans that have been done in Europe, which is amazing. And this is the breakout. And oh, sorry, my percentages, you can't see them super well on here, I apologize. But you have about 20% in the yellow range, so I would say a little more than half of people aren't in blue or purple as you've been scanning and those scans are coming in. But you can see this distribution, which follows a pretty standard curve for what we're seeing globally. But it is fun to go and look at different markets, different regions, how they break out. We see scores in like Asia, Korea, and Japan that are on average a little bit higher, right? And then of course, I'll take the fall for the US. We typically have the lower scores. But it is interesting to go and see how different regions' diet impacts the nutrition that you're getting in there. And so while you may say that you're eating healthy, I think a lot of the foods that we're eating are deficient in the nutrients that we would expect them to have. And so again, another great reason why supplements are so important is to help fill in those nutritional gaps. The other thing on the formatting got a little squished, but this was super exciting, but not only do supplements impact the way you feel, but they also impact the way you look. We did part of this study which actually went and showed that people had smoother looking skin, better hydration, and fewer wrinkles as part of having a higher score. And so we'll continue to build on this a little bit more with Nu Skin. We're looking more into skin and the impacts of score on skin. But this is, again, such a great, I think, reason why you should worry about what you're putting inside of your body and why it's important to measure what you're putting inside of your body. And so high level, here again, when people say, why is PRYSM so unique? Tell me a little bit more about it. Your bullet points are science. We have incredible science that powers it. We built this device just to measure chiroptics. A lot of devices out there may measure a variety of things, but we have put all of our science and studies and resources into this measurement. And it's built for accuracy, and it's built for the masses, right? It's built to be able to scan anyone. Anyone can walk up to it and get a score. We have our exclusive technology, we have the ecosystem with the app, and then we also, again, have those proven solutions, right? Wouldn't it be sad, right, if you scanned people and said, oh, you're really low, good luck, right? I mean, it's not a great answer. And so as part of that, right, we have the full solution to be able to go and say, okay, now you know where you are, and here's how you can get where you want to go. And so again, those solutions, I won't touch on this very long because I know we already talked about it, but we do have those clinically proven supplements that are available that are shown to increase your score in as little as 4 to 6 weeks. And so as part of that, that will help you on your journey into increasing your score. And I heard that you guys are getting Life Pack Elements sometime this year too, which will be great. I'm excited for it because I do not love pills. This will be a lot easier to swallow and manage. So we're really excited to be able to continue to provide refined solutions for increasing your score. Lastly, I hope you guys have all downloaded the app or have looked at what is inside PRYSM.io. But I do want to provide some updates on some app features that we're working on. Because again, this is not the end for my team in terms of development. This is just the beginning from a development perspective, right? Now that you guys have it, we're learning all this data, we're seeing how scores are coming in, we're getting feedback from you guys as well, what things you need, things that can help you as you're sharing and selling product. And so we are constantly refining and coming out with new features. And part of this next app update, it will be launched next week, so make sure that you have your phone ready to go and your app updates on. But we have added the ability, and I apologize, I know it's different for every market, so this may not apply to you, but we have the ability to go and adjust the different pricing that is shown inside of the app, so you can choose whether you want to show and share member pricing versus retail pricing. So this is just a little small update. The bigger update is that we now have a more consumer-friendly version of the app. And so as we start to roll out to customers, having features for them that are more geared toward a customer experience, this is what we are putting into the app as part of next week's update. And so again, make sure you go and keep your phone up to date with the latest and greatest because we have a lot more fun features coming down the road. We also have, one thing people have asked us for is a battery icon indicator. That will be coming as part of this next app release too, so you can see the actual battery of your PRYSM.io. That's a very small example though of you know, how we're constantly just refining this experience. And then I do want to give just a little kind of sneak peek. We're looking into some other new features, things like refining kind of that home dashboard, giving you a little bit better insights into your score. We're going to be introducing the concept of a true score, which takes an average of your scores over time and kind of gives you a more solid indicator of where you stand as you scan daily and see how your trends change and shift. And then we just have some other refinements in terms of the PRYSM profile that we're working on, and better tutorials, making calibration a little bit easier, right? Those are all things that the team is working on right now. And I'm just super excited. I'm super excited about what we're going to create together. Again, the feedback you give to us, the insights that you share, you guys are the ones with boots on the ground actually bringing this product to the world. And so it's super important for us that we hear from you and understand how we can help make this experience better. But I'm so excited to see what you will all do with PRYSM.io, and thank you for having me.